Hello everyone and welcome back to another stream from Manu Talks NRL SuperCoach. Coming back after a couple of weeks away, having a nice little sojourn or whatever you call it in Europe, which was very lovely. So I had a lot of sunshine. King is back, as and Mitchell says. Not sure if I'm calling myself the king, but I appreciate it. Yeah, so apologies for being my absence the last couple of weeks. As much as I tried, it's very hard to get your computer set up and everything to do streams. So I thought, look, you know what? Just going to give myself a little bit of a break and we'll get into it for the last month. Appreciate a lot of people don't have a lot of trades. But yes, as Tyler says, Al Horford's back. That's right. I met the guy, Al Horford. I had to laugh so much. One of the comments, which was, Al Horford asked for the picture, didn't he? Yeah, that got me laughing pretty good. But yeah, no, that was pretty cool to see him in Greece of all places. So I'm sure he's enjoying his championship. Let's go, lad, says Oz Sam. Hey, Oman says Queenslander. Geronimo 99 says, I came for the king. Am I in the wrong place? No, let's run with it. You're in the right place for sure. Hope you had a great getaway, Laws. Yes, I did. It was very, very nice. Here he is from Art. Haven't seen you yet, but I'm sure the hair looks amazing. Yeah, look, safe to say, guys, look, 2 weeks away and the hair still looking good. It's still looking good. If anything, it only got better getting some good European sun because, look, I've been tracking the weather in Sydney and it's been pretty grim. And I came back last night and it's all grey and I was like, no, take me back to Greece. 29 degrees and sunny every single day. But it's all right. Well, I'll tell you a little bit about my trip as Joshua was asking. Yeah, the trip was really good. It was I went to London for a little bit. I've been to London a few times, so but it's nice to go back. And then Greece for just over a week, which was awesome. I love the Greek islands. If you're ever going to Greece, I definitely prefer the islands. And Milos was the second island I went to. I went to Santorini. I've never been to Greece, so I thought have to do Santorini. But then Milos was amazing island. Good relaxation, the clearest, bluest water I've ever seen, and just being able to jump straight into it was awesome. So. And then we went to Paris, which was actually really cool. 1 day in Paris. It was a very busy 2 weeks. So I went to Paris for 1 day to watch hockey. So I watched Netherlands versus Spain. And I watched India versus Germany. I've got Indian background, so it was pretty cool to see India in hockey. They didn't win the game, but they did win bronze in the end. But yeah, and then I was in Amsterdam for a couple of days as well before I came back home. So yeah, nice little trip. But it's good to be back. I think this week is a little bit less carnage and chaos in SuperCoach. We've got a bit more of that last week, I'm pretty sure. Round 23 was pretty hard on team lists. Roosters on the bye. There were lots of big players out and missing. This week, I think we've had a pretty steady TLT. So I think I've tried to change a lot of the topics because I appreciate the stream's always called trade targets. It's always nice to have trade targets, but you need to have trades to do so. And I feel like trades are running low. So give me some feedback as well about what are the kind of things that you want to see. Like I've added a section on sit v starts. I feel like that's probably a little bit more crucial head-to-heads, and maybe also with you should have hopefully got some depth in your team as well. Maybe a little bit more chat about captaincy. I haven't got a section about pods, but we can chat a bit more about pods. But we will cover obviously some of the key players and things like that as well. But you guys just let me know. We can try to keep this a little bit more fluid and interactive, given that, trades are running low, so it's probably a bit more relevant to just address your questions a bit more directly. I really need your stats to give me some guidance, so let's get into it ASAP. All right, we'll get started then on the advice of SC Warrior. Mark says, welcome back. Tells thanks to get his boss, Martin, back on. I'll put in a good word. I'll message Tommy and ask him if there's another reappearance at some point for the rest of the year. What a great username. I can't read that chat out, but I'll good funny comment there. All right, already some questions about selling Jerome Hughes, Cherry Evans, Ellie Katoa, sit v start. We'll definitely chat about that as well. But yes, trip was very good, guys. I was posting my trade and round updates throughout the couple of weeks as well. So I scored 1243 last week. I'm at 3,200. Is very, very, very tiny red arrow last week. So 3,200, but I think what I've got going for me is I think the depth is pretty good. And I've also still got 5 trades at the moment, which, let me know in the chat, guys, as well. You know what? I'm going to put a poll because I like getting your views and your insight. How many trade? Because I've been out for the last couple of weeks, and I feel like there's been some injuries. Like Mulatalo's one from a few weeks back. Reece Walsh is actually another one who's been ruled out. Best case looks like round 26. So I wonder how many trades people are actually running at the moment. It might just be useful to see where people are at. So let me see. Let me go sub 2 trades. Let's go 2 to 4, and then let's go over 5. Let's do that. All right, I've just put a poll on the stream. Only 3 options. How many trades do you have left? Less than 2, between 2 and 4, and over 5. 5 and over, I should have said. So can you see the results? But I feel like the 5 trades is a pretty good spot to be in at the moment. So I'm hoping I've got some flexibility to make some trades that maybe others just can't make, and hopefully that leaves me in some good stead. 6 with a boost from Joshua. That's really, really good. How about Dane Laurie? Yeah, I was keen on Dane Laurie. Just couldn't quite make it work in my team a few weeks back. He ended up missing. He ended up getting injured in that game, only scoring 50. But every time he's played big minutes, at full 80 minutes, he's put out some really, really good scores at fullback. So definitely keeping an eye on him for next season for sure. Maybe he plays number 6. Although Blaise Solangi could be there next year at number 6 instead. But anyway, that's where I'm at the moment ranking wise. Get your questions in, guys. We'll get straight into the topics. I feel like TLT, there's probably not a whole heap to touch on. I know a few of the big players are back, like Eli Katoa has been named, which is really good. Who else have we got? Broncos are on a bye, but obviously the big one out of there is we know Payne Halves is already out for the rest of the season, and I traded him last week after trading him in, getting 1 score from him for 17. Traded him to Joe Tarpany. Not last week. That was was it last week or the week before last? I don't even remember anymore. May have been the week before last. But yeah, so there's been a few injuries rolling around, which haven't been great. Jason, miss you, Roman. Yeah, thank you so much. I missed you too. Did a 1,000-piece jigsaw of Santorini once. Nearly drove me crazy, but the completed picture was well worth it. Beautiful place. Yeah, Santorini was lovely. It was very busy though, which I expected going into it. Like, it was the middle of summer. It's a very, very popular place. And so I think if you're not and I don't think it's the place in Greece for like beaches necessarily and swimming. There are plenty of better other islands. So I think Santorini, my advice is probably to go into shoulder season, like maybe say September, or probably September, I reckon. You're probably going to get way less tourists and probably still get similar weather. 7 trades left from Bailey Smith playing fullback roulette. That's a very, very good position to be in. So from the poll, 50% of you are saying you've got between 2 and 4 trades, 27 over 5, 24% less than 2. And when I say, less than 2, that's obviously going to be pretty tight spot to be in. So what we'll try to do is we'll try to focus a bit more on the kind of top 10 trade in and outs this time. I normally cover that anyway, but we'll probably do that a little bit more deliberately, and then we'll spend a bit more time hopefully on the sit v stars, because I know that's going to be quite important. And then also I've tried to add a little bit more stats let me get my words straight. Tried to add in a few more numbers around ownership of players. Because I feel like at this time of year, and I know most of the time I cater for overall, well, pretty much all of the time I cater for overall, but I do understand people are in their head-to-head finals as well. So trying to get people who are maybe lower owned might be useful. So we can use that ownership stuff to help with that too. So first topic I thought maybe worth chatting about is Manu, Lomax, and To'o, because I think they're all pretty popular trade-ins for this week. Lomax is number 1, Manu's number 6, To'o is number 10 as it currently stands, and that's by all coaches. Even if I filter, say, to the top 1% of super coaches, I believe, Lomax is still number 1, Manu's in 4th. To'o actually doesn't make the top 10. So, but still, Lomax and Manu being heavily traded in by the top ranked players. And for good reason. They both have got pretty good runs coming up. Manu off the bye with a high break even, but he's at a really good price at 574k. You've got Lomax, who's pretty much been a gun all season long. He's just had a really, really tough run of games though, but he now comes into a better stretch. And then Brian To'o has just been on a tear for a long time now, since like round 13, round 14. So there's a couple of questions which were pretty straightforward. Would you pick Manu or would you pick Lomax? I think my preferred option would be To'o, but the issue I think with him is, one, his price at 745k is quite expensive, and the second thing is that I think Penrith will stagger resting some of their players. So I do feel like you just don't know when To'os could miss a game. He's been named for this week, but he could get a rest around 27. It could happen around 26, maybe even around 25. And I think when you're paying that much money, you want to have a bit more certainty about this guy being available for you for the rest of the season. So I'm kind of only really considering Manu and Lomax just because they're probably in a bit of a more reachable price tag. My preference is Lomax. So ownership-wise, him and Manu are pretty similar, 19% and 24%. And I've looked at ownership in the top 5% to try to keep it a bit more relevant to where I hope most of you all are ranked. So they're generally pretty close in ownership. Roosters, I would say, have got a better draw than the Dragons. So Manu this week against Parramatta, and then Titans, Canberra at home, and then the Rabbitohs. It's a really, really good run. Roosters are probably one of the top teams to be targeting, I think, for the run home. Compared to the Dragons, who realistically, it's only Lomax, I think, that you consider from their team. What I just prefer with Lomax over Manu is that even though Manu has had a good season average of 73, I mean, the 3-round is a bit lower at 47, but I think even before that, there was some signs of him kind of slowing down a little bit in his scoring. So, for example, round 13, when he was a very popular trade-in, when, if you remember, Teddy got put back into New South Wales Origin camp, everyone jumped on Manu. The 5-round average of 46, there were some good games there as well. Cowboys, Parramatta, he got only 39 points. So since round 13, his scores have been 51, 39, 63, 48, and 30. So he's had a lot of lower games in there. And while the run home is really good, someone like a Lomax, I think, he's got better base than Manu. So Manu's base for the season is 33. Pretty sure Lomax is averaging about a 30. He's got a 33 base as well. I think from a base power point of view, I think they're similar. But then Lomax does also have the goal kicking. And even in the tougher matchups, Lomax has still been pretty matchup proof in the last few weeks. So, for example, we're looking at 81 versus Manly in round 15, 69 versus Penrith, 59 versus Melbourne, and 81 versus the Dogs, who have been the best defense all season long. So I've got a bit more confidence, I think, in Lomax giving you better scores more consistently. And I think he's got a higher ceiling because of the goal kicking. He's already scored 170 earlier this season, and he scored 108 versus the Titans in, I think, round 1 this year. So I think with the goal kicking, with I'd say a higher floor because of goal kicking, if you can get up there, Lomax, I think, is deserving of a trade-in over Joey Manu. But I understand if money's a little bit tighter, or you're looking for maybe a slightly more of a pod, because Manu, as it currently stands, will be more of a pod in the top 5% of coaches. He's probably the one to go for, and I probably wouldn't be going for To'o just because of that resting risk. As Tyler says, Lomax goal kicking, no rests, and his scores are based on opposition. A little bit less on the opposition, I think. I think he's proven to be a little bit more matchup proof just based on some of those scores that I mentioned before, like 81 versus the Dogs last week, 69 versus Penrith. But one thing I want to also mention very quickly is, so Dom Young has been named this week, but it was initially reported as a 2 to 4 week injury. I do feel like this is something I'm deliberating for my own team. Now, obviously, the Roosters' run home is really, really good, but the Parramatta matchup probably, as it stands, looks like the best one. Apologies, Benny G. I know you're in the chat. But yeah, to be fair, Parramatta were much better last few weeks. But based on season-long averages, and what the numbers I've got here as well are actually the ranking of PPM conceded, but only looking at the last 5 rounds. So this is not looking at the entire season. This is only looking at the last 5 rounds. Parramatta are still like the 4th worst for defending centre wings. And in the Roosters' run home, Parramatta's probably the best matchup. If someone like a Dom Young is ruled out again this week, again, thinking of maybe if you're a head-to-head player and you need the numbers for this week, and if you need the win, I think Dom Young's price, what is he priced at? He is, let me have a quick look-see. He's 666k. You can do a straight swap to Lomax this week. So if you're in a must-win head-to-head, and I feel like there's a good chance that Dom Young still could miss out this week. I know he's been named, but like the hamstring injury, it could reoccur. He maybe gets ruled out. Luckily, he plays on Friday. Lomax plays on the Sunday, so he can make that swap. But that's something I'm thinking of doing. If Dom Young is ruled out, it's a little bit knee-jerky because ideally you want Dom Young for Titans, Canberra, and Rabbitohs. But Lomax is, an equally good centre wing option. I'm also potentially looking at maybe going Dom Young to Lomax this week if Dom Young is ruled out. If Dom Young plays, then I'm happy to keep him. But I really do like Lomax this week. I think the matchup is a really good one. And I think he's a nice, 24% ownership is not insanely high. So I think he's actually still somewhat of a good point of difference that you can go for in your head-to-head this week, but also for overall as well. If you are thinking pods in your center wings, Roosters are a good team to target. So some that stand, if you think of the other backline players, Daniel Tupou, probably the one who sticks out. He's generally got pretty good work rate, so his scores are not going to generally be too low. And he's on the wing, so we know that he can get those big scores in him. Looking at his most recent scores, 75, 79, 56, 63, 99, 50, and 108, all since round 15. So he's got a pretty good 5-round average of 74. He's 638k, so he's not the cheapest, but also a pod you can consider. Someone in the chat's actually mentioned Suoli'i as a bit of a pod as well. Yeah, look, I haven't looked into it, but he's probably very low owned. But he's got his last, to be fair, since round 10, Suoli'i's only gone below 60 once, and that was against Melbourne. But 70 last week, 96 the week before. Also an option that you could consider as a bit of a point of difference. Last reserve, Isako or Mazu from Dave. I've got a section on Sit v Starts, and I believe I cover them, so we'll get onto that a little bit later. So some of the Sit v Starts will be a little bit down the track. Who has trades left? Coward, surely. Yeah, that's definitely Benny G. I know you've ran out of trades, and you're playing now on legendary mode for the rest of the season. Para to win by 13 plus this week, just because we have all gone hard on the Roosters. It's been that kind of season. Yeah, look, even without Dom Young potentially a sell if he's out for this week, I will probably be trading in another Roosters player this week as well. So yeah, it's knowing what happens when I sometimes trade in players. Yeah, that's likely to happen where Para could win 13 plus. But that's kind of my thoughts on the Manu Lomax situation, because I know a few people were looking at potentially trading in one of those two guys. I haven't really covered it here, but some of the guys that people are looking to sell, some of the questions were like, do I sell Iro or Mazu for one of these two? Like Mazu is the 4th most traded out player. I definitely think you keep Iro. Like the way that he's been going the last few weeks, Sharks have got a really good run home. It's a good matchup this week as well versus the Knights. I think you keep Iro for sure. Mazu was really unlucky last week, just no ball went his way. 38 pretty much all in base power. This week's tough against the Sharks, but he does have a good run home as well. But I think similar base, but probably better draw lies with Iro. So I think I'd probably lean towards keeping Iro, and if you had to get rid of one for one of these guys, who I do think is maybe somewhat of an upgrade, Mazu is probably the one I'd be selling. I know McLean was originally in the top 10 most traded out players. He's not at the moment. Number 1 is actually Reece Walsh, who's now the number 1 most traded out player. Makes sense given that he's injured. But I know a few people were thinking about trading out one of Iro or Mazu. If you had to pick one for the run home, Teddy or Turbo from Chris, let's jump to that because I've got a slide on fullbacks and who are the best two for the run home. So the reason I put this together, makes sense now because Reece Walsh, after I put this slide together, it came out that Reece Walsh has been injured and should probably be back around 26 is what the chat is. Scott Drinkwater is the 2nd most traded out player. If you're looking at trade ins, Ponga is the 2nd most traded in player, and Turbo is the 4th, and Teddy is the 5th. So 3 of these guys all feature in the top 5 trade ins. So if you're only going one of Turbo or Teddy for the run home, for me, it probably still has to be Tedesco. One, he's cheaper now. Secondly, I think over the season, he's got a better average. Ownership-wise, also pretty similar. So if you're looking at the top 5% of coaches, Teddy's at 71%, Turbo's at 66%. So there's not really an ownership thing, I think, too much into it here. I think it's just purely the draw. So Parramatta, both over the season and also in the last 5 rounds, have conceded the most PPM to opposition fullbacks. And this is something that they've done for multiple seasons. This is not just a this season thing. So I think Teddy, for me, could be the best captain by a long shot this week. So that's one. I think I definitely I'd probably prefer to captain Teddy over Turbo this week. And I think for the run home, Titans, Canberra, Souths versus, if you look at the full 4, Parramatta, Titans, Canberra, Rabbitohs versus Warriors, Tigers, Bulldogs, Sharks. I think Teddy's probably got, on paper, I think 4 really, Parramatta this week could be a fantastic matchup, and then the next 3 are really good. I think Turbo's got 2 really good matchups. I think he's probably got the best matchup having the Tigers. He can easily go 150, 160. But then Bulldogs and Sharks around 26, 27, I do think are going to be a little bit more difficult. So I think draw-wise, for me still, Teddy for cheaper, I think, is the one. And I don't think ownership is really too different between the two either. Val Holmes to Lomax from Jack. So I think I wouldn't be selling Holmes this week. I think he still had a pretty good floor last week of 56. I've got Val Holmes. I'll probably still be keeping him for this week. Next week, though, I might look to potentially sell if you've got the trades, obviously, because he's got to buy next week. And then he runs, I believe, into he runs into Melbourne and then the Bulldogs. He's got a home game this week, so I feel like Holmes at home, no pun intended, is still a pretty good option. And, apart from last week, he was on a tear prior to that. But for me, next week could potentially be an avenue or a window where you could. I probably don't think I'd be selling Holmes to Lomax, though, this week. Welcome back, Aman. Who did your hair today? It's on point. Ian, I'm the only one who does my hair. So you're looking at the guy who does it. Welcome back, Aman. Thank you, Anne Newen. But yeah, that's probably a little bit on the Teddy Turbo comment, Teddy Turbo chat. Obviously, I traded in Ponga last week. I think he was, if not the most popular trade in last week, and I captained him last week, which worked out really well. So at the moment, I've got a combination of Teddy and Ponga. I don't think I'll be straying from that. I just don't think I've got the money. I haven't got the money to get up to Turbo. I probably would prefer Turbo to Ponga. I just think that round 25 matchup versus the Tigers, not owning him, is really, really scary. But I think I just have to live with it now. I think I would think by now people have probably made their bed with their fullbacks. The only people are probably the ones who maybe sold Teddy last week and maybe had the trades to go back to him. I think if you sold Teddy last week, I think you just have to look to get him back. So I think fullbacks, there's probably not a whole heap of discussion because I think there's such a big price difference now between Turbo and Ponga that if you got one of the two, if you just don't have the money for Turbo, I think you just go Ponga. He's still at a pretty good price, so I think he's still a really good trade in. Sharks this week is obviously a little bit tough, but he's got a 35 break even, so he's on the way up in terms of price. And it's really round 25, 26, 27 where you want Ponga, I think. And he's goal kicking, which is obviously a big plus. If you look at matchups in the next 4 weeks as well, based on PPM conceded to fullbacks, Ponga slightly edges out Turbo. So on paper, stats-wise, his draw is better than Turbo, although I probably rate Turbo a little bit more than Ponga himself as a player to get a bigger SuperCoach score. But yeah, I think for me, Teddy probably still number one just with that really good draw and what he's done over the season. Turbo's probably second, and then I think Ponga is third. Drinky I've just listed here because he is one of the more popular sells. If you own Drinkwater, look, his break-even's okay, it's 57, but is at a 743k. What you could do if you've got Drinkwater, Canberra at home I still think is an okay matchup. They're very similar ranked they're very similarly placed in terms of difficulty of an opponent, two fullbacks compared to Turbo and Ponga. So, Turbo versus Warriors over the last 5, they've been the 10th best at defending fullbacks. For the Knights, it's 14th against the Sharks. And for Drinkwater, it's 11th versus the Raiders. So it's not that different. So I feel like you can maybe hold Drinkwater this week, and then maybe next week when he's got the bye, then Melbourne Bulldogs. I think he's a very easy sell next week. You could potentially, even by waiting a week, do another trade if you've got them, which I'm probably going to keep caveating this whole stream. You can make another trade this week to downgrade, free up a bunch of cash, so that by next week, you can just decide you either get Ponga or you just make sure you've got money in the bank to get Turbo next week against Tigers because he could probably be the best captain next week. So I think Drinkwater sellers, unless you can go straight to one of the two and you've made your decision, that's fine. Otherwise, you could also wait a week. Because I think with break-evens at Drinkwater's price at 743k, you probably still will be able to make your trade next week as well. Who did your beard then, Ian? It's even better than your hair. Mate, I do my beard as well. I do all of my own facial grooming. All you have to do is invest in a very good clipper. Although my one, the clipper itself is fine, but the little adjustable thing, it broke. So I have to buy a new clipper now just for that. But yeah, it's all about knowing what suits your face. Just keep the lines pretty simple. I'm not really too into those big curved ones. I just keep it straight to my ear. And I do, if you want to know what I do 3 millimeters, and that kind of keeps it to a good length. Anyway, that's some beard grooming tips from Amar Talks. Not that you needed that too. that's a little bit on the fullbacks. So I'm going to go to the halfbacks and 5/8 because I know there was a question earlier in the stream about Hughes to Cherry Evans. So very quickly on halfback. So similar thing here. I've looked at a few of them. I've looked at Sam Walker, Cherry Evans, Burton. I've added in Max Plath here if people are interested still in Max Plath because he's had a really good run in the last couple of weeks. Then I've got the likes of Munster, Jerome Hughes, and Jaden Campbell. So I'm a Jaden Campbell owner at the moment. I'm also looking at whether he's potentially a sell for me to another one of these halfback or 5/8s. And I've got him currently on my 5/8. I can trade him to a halfback because I've got Dylan Brown at halfback. So I can switch Dillbags down to 5/8, which is pretty handy. So yeah, Campbell is the sixth most traded out player at the moment. Jerome Hughes isn't in there, but I feel like if I change the ranking to top 1%, no, he's not anywhere near the top trade outs, but I think Hughes to Cherry Evans, probably not a move I think I'd be making. Cherry Evans has had a good little run recently, like the last 5 weeks. I think he's averaged about 78, and he does typically end the season well, and he is the biggest pod. So he's 6% owned in the top 5%. But I think after this week versus Penrith, like Jerome Hughes still does have Dolphins, Cowboys, and then the Broncos, who I think we now look at as not a difficult opponent. I think Jerome Hughes is still completely fine to hold. If you're looking for like a head-to-head win this week, then I understand the Hughes to Cherry Evans move. Although Sam Walker for me is probably clear. So if you look at draw over the next 4 weeks for the rest of the season, in terms of PPM conceded to opposition halfbacks, and again, this is looking at just the last 5 rounds, so try to keep it to a more recent sample size. Sam Walker on paper has the best draw for a halfback. Jerome Hughes is 33. Jerome Hughes actually ranks better than Cherry Evans. So while Cherry Evans has got a really good game probably this week and next week versus the Tigers, he does then have Bulldogs and Sharks, which Bulldogs I think is, Bulldogs and Sharks being very, very difficult opponents. At the same time, Hughes has probably got better opposition. So Hughes to Cherry Evans I probably don't love. I think if I was selling Hughes, for me it would only really be, I think, to Sam Walker, just because you're probably chasing the ceiling there of the good draw, and also of the goal kicking that Sam Walker has. Sam Walker's gotten 2 tons in the last couple of weeks. I actually sold Sam Walker to Jaden Campbell not that long ago. Probably on balance, I think they've scored about the same for me. So I probably could have held that trade the whole time, but I think I've benefited from making a bit of money out of Jaden Campbell. But for me, Jaden Campbell at 694k, so just quickly looking at his draw. This week is really good against the Dragons, so they've ranked 4th worst at defending opposition 5/8, so that's a pretty good matchup. But the 3 after that, Roosters, Knights away, and then Penrith. Like Roosters and Penrith, even if Penrith rest plays in round 27, I still feel like that's going to be difficult. And he's got 142 break even. So in my position where I've got trades, I think, to make these kind of more aggressive moves, Jaden Campbell to Sam Walker is for me a move that I am pretty confident in doing, just to benefit from that really good run for the Roosters. And they're both goal kicking, so I don't feel like I'm losing out too much there. But I think we can probably agree that, going for the Roosters is a better team. Someone's asking, would I trade out Cody Walker? So I didn't actually include Cody Walker in this, but I probably should have in hindsight. Look, Cody Walker's got the West Tigers this week. So 87 break even. I think if I was a Cody Walker owner, I would probably just have to keep him for this week, just because it's the West Tigers. And then after that, I think round 25 onwards, when it becomes the Knights, Penrith, and then the Roosters, I think at that point you can probably sell. Even if he goes down a little bit in price, maybe to say 600k, he's still at an okay price to sell. And it's not like he's got like a 150 break even that he could tank a lot of cash. 87 break even, you can easily see him scoring 70, 80 and maintaining price. I'd probably be keeping Cody Walker if I was owning him. As Tyler says, Sam Walker clears. Alexander says Campbell to Munster. Would I be doing that move? So it's a little bit hard for me to comment on Munster, just because since I've been away the last couple of weeks, I've not been able to watch really a single full 80 minutes. I've just only been able to watch some highlights of games. So I found it difficult to get a good read on Munster and how he's looked. I just haven't even seen him play. So hard for me to assess. It feels tough when he's got Penrith this week. At least, like, for me, while he's got a high break even, look, Campbell's 694k. So against it, like, I'd definitely take Campbell's matchup this week over Munster's. And even if Munster kills it, goes 100, and let's say Campbell goes gets 40, 50, maybe gets 50 points. Look, you'll probably still be able to go Campbell to Munster next week and still make money on that trade. And you probably have a bit more confidence about doing it next week when Campbell's got the Roosters, Munster's got then the Dolphins. So I think for me, I probably wouldn't be doing Campbell to Munster this week. Even if you're in a kind of a win head, even if you're in a must-win head-to-head, I feel like I'd take the odds on Campbell outscoring Munster. Have you ever thought about opening your own barbershop? Not really, to be honest. Despite whatever you all think about my hair and my beard, I'm quite clunky with my hands. Like, I don't have good dexterity. I feel like it'd be impossible for me to like cut hair and stuff like that. Although maybe I just need to open it and employ the people who can do that. But maybe I just run it as the owner. Not a bad idea. Wouldn't mind. And then, you know what? We could imagine this. Imagine an NRL SuperCoach barbershop. You know, we just everyone who attends has to have a SuperCoach team, and you have to be willing to chat about it if you're at the barbershop. I don't mind that, actually. And then when NRL season's over, if you're interested in Fantasy Premier League, it can be a Fantasy Premier League barbershop too. How about that? Don't hate the idea. Don't hate that idea at all. I'll skip over on this now. Unless there's any further questions around the halfbacks and 5/8, we can defer to it. I didn't have time to put together a slide on second row forward. So what I'll do is I'll just tackle some of those questions directly here. And then I'll move on to the sit v start because I'm seeing a lot of questions about sit v starts. So Anthony Worth here has said who to trade out to get Angus. That's very difficult to answer when I don't know your team and who you're looking to trade out. But someone here is asking, Stefanos is asking, is Kolomatangi a sell? Swift says... not Swift, sorry. Who was saying it before? Someone else was asking about would you sell Kolomatangi to Angus? So I guess the thing with Kolomatangi is that he's been named on the edge. And I think Murray is back at lock. Minutes for Kolomatangi have now gone down the last couple of weeks. So 54 minutes and 55 the last 2 weeks. Prior to that, he was playing like 80 minutes in the middle. That's when he was really getting his big scores. At 645k, yes, it's the Tigers this week, but he does have 119 break even. Angus is 699, call it 70k. There's only 50k difference between Kolomatangi and Angus. With Angus versus Parramatta and with this really good run home, yeah, I'd probably look to get in Angus, I think. And I think Kolomatangi is a good candidate to sell to him, just because I think of the reduced minutes. Angus has got the upside, and I think if Kolomatangi is only playing this 55-minute role, it's very hard for him to get those kind of big scores that Angus would get playing 80 minutes. So, yeah, at the moment, Angus is, I think, he's the third most traded in player. In terms of actual trades, Payne Haas is the main person being sold for Angus, but after him, it is Kolomatangi. So I think, yeah, to me, that is probably a trade I would, I would be doing. Oman cuts, yeah, we could call it Oman cuts. Kolomatangi to Angus, although Kolomatangi plays the Tigers this week. Yes, I know it's Tigers, but also at the same time, Angus is versing Parramatta, and I think that Parramatta matchup is also a really, really good one. And I definitely prefer Angus, I think, for the run home. I think based on his draw, he could be the number one second row forward for the last 4 weeks. Probably him and Ola Kuatu have got the best draws for the rest of the season. Eli Katoa is probably number 3 in that. Britton Nicker is close. Fafita has got the tougher draw, but Fafita's Fafita. He scored 65 last week versus the Sharks when they scored 0 points. So, but for me, I think the combination of Angus's work rate, attacking upside, and a good draw, for me, he's number 1, and Kolomatangi I don't think is in that. So I think for me, yeah, Kolomatangi to Angus, very, very comfortable trade. Is it a good week to sit Nikora? So let's get on to some sit v starts, because I'm seeing a few more of these questions, and we'll try to spend a bit more time on this as well. So happy to spend a little bit longer on this. So am I going both of Haaland and Salah this year? Up until now, I've had both of them, but I'm starting to think a little bit. Diogo Jota looks really good. So I'm like, do I go Salah to Jota? And then, because I'm missing an Arsenal. Look, I'm an Arsenal fan, so I don't have any Arsenal in my team at the moment. I really want Saka. If I sell Salah, I can get Saka. So decisions to be made. At the moment, I'm more likely going to have both of Haaland and Salah. I just feel like they're the best. I need to get them in. And they both have good games coming up in the start of the year. Okay. Questions on City start. So Seth was asking, is it a good week to sit Nikora? He looked great last week. So I did try to rank. So what I've kind of done here, maybe just to explain the page before I start talking about it. So what I've looked, and I'll do this for every week for the rest of the season. So hopefully it's relevant. What I've looked at is every position. Try to do some kind of listing of how would I be ranking the order of how I'd be reserving players in each position. Which I know sometimes isn't the most useful because you probably want to be looking at, the halfback versus, say, the second row forward that you want to rank, that you want to sit. So in terms of second row, the way I looked at it this week was you definitely play Hamoli. So looking at PPM conceded over the last 5, New Zealand have had conceded the most points to opposition second row forwards. So for me, Olaquatu, I think, was a easy one to play. Same as Angus. I think you have to play both of them. So coming then probably to your third second row, you're probably playing one of Fifita, Nikora, or Katoa. I think just because of how he plays and how SuperCoach has scored and all that kind of thing, Fifita for me, I think has to be someone you just play despite them. And I think the Dragons is still a good matchup. So I think Hamoli, Angus, and Fifita would be the 3 that I would be playing. And then if you're looking at reserving one second row, I think I'd be reserving Nikora over Eli Katoa. So Katoa's got the Penrith matchup, which is, objectively probably a harder matchup than the Sharks versus the Knights. Both of Penrith and the Knights in the last 5 weeks have equally ranked around 13th at conceding points to opposition second row. So there's actually not that much difference on a stats basis. So when the stats kind of say that they're both the same, I just look at it as I think you just have to try to play the guy who you feel like is going to score more. Simple as that. And I think Britt Nikora looked really good last week. His base is pretty much around the low 40s. So assuming he gets no attacking stats, he's probably going to get you around, let's say, 45. Eli Katoa has got a base average of about 48. So I'd say if he gets no attacking stats, Katoa is more likely to get you about 50 to 55. So Katoa's got a higher floor. But thinking of who I would expect more to be getting like an attacking stat, it's probably going to be Britt Nikora. So I, at the moment, am actually sitting Katoa in my own team. And I would probably be, playing Nikora, I think, over Eli Katoa. So that's how I'd be ranking some of my second row. So Jason was asking here, last 2 reserves out of Eli Katoa, Nikora, Duncan, or Samuel Fainu. Look, for me, it would probably, this obviously is a little bit different, but I would be playing Nikora and Eli Katoa. I know Eli Katoa's got the tough matchup versus Penrith, but I feel like Samuel Fainu, base-wise, isn't as high as Eli Katoa. I feel like, Storm are a better team, obviously, so I feel like I've got a bit more confidence in if there are going to be some attacking stats, it would be probably coming through someone like a Jerome Hughes, and he very often uses someone like Eli Katoa. Samuel Fainu, his base is like around the 40s. He got attacking stats the last couple of weeks, but outside of that 112 that he got a couple of weeks ago, which I had him on the bench, 55, 50, 43, 48, 51. Like, Eli Katoa can easily get that without attacking stats. So I'd easily play Eli Katoa over Samuel Fainu. Romeo is asking here, start Brooks or Burton? So I didn't actually account for Luke Brooks, apologies. Even though has Luke Brooks gotten 200s in the last 2 weeks? Sorry, I've been a little bit out of the loop. No, he's got 114, 49, 112, but he does have 2 tons in the last 3 weeks. Look, if you've got Luke Brooks and you've got Matt Burton, so probably would be Burton. So Warriors have been conceding 8th most points to opposition 5/8. Burton versus the Dolphins this week, they've been conceding the most over the last 5 weeks. Plus the fact that Burton's goal kicking, I think Burton is who I'd be playing for sure. You probably just take the goal kicker there. Let's see some other sit v starts coming in here for. Jack Thompson is saying, reserve Curran or Katoa. This one's a little bit more difficult. I haven't really considered that myself so much just because I've got Curran at front row. So for me, he's kind of one of my starting 2 front rows. So he just is a play for me. Again, probably has got similar floor. I think Curran's more likely to get you around 55. So I think both of them, without any attacking stats, are about the same. He's been named at prop current, so maybe attacking stats could be a little bit less likely. But if he moves to an edge, if you look at the Dolphins here, second worst at defending opposition second row in the last 5 rounds. So I'd still argue there's maybe a little bit more potential for Curran to get some kind of attacking stats. He's already scored 3 tries this season. I think Eli Katoa scored more than that. I'd maybe lean towards playing Curran, which sounds crazy, but I think it's mainly just the matchup. I know matchups don't matter as much for, back rollers, but like looking at Katoa's scores versus more difficult opposition, 66 versus Penrith earlier in the season. There was a 42 against the Bulldogs. There was an 85 against the Roosters, to be fair. There was a 56 versus the Roosters. So I think on balance, when he's played tougher opposition, apart from that one score of 85, he's generally had lower scores. So I feel like maybe he's one that you can try to go against the crowd with and maybe play Curran. I'm torn on who to play over Appy and Robson. Flip a coin. Apologies. I didn't actually include Appy in here as well. That would actually be pretty easy for me. I'd probably actually play Appy. So I'm going to make some live edits here because I can. And you guys can see how I do my slides. So if you're looking at points conceded to that position over the last 5 rounds, Rabbitohs are 10th. And if you look at Robson versus Canberra, they're 15th. So actually on matchup, you'd probably think that Coruscant's got a better matchup on paper. Coruscant's also goal kicking. So, correct me if I'm wrong, because I may have missed this the last couple of weeks, but was Aiden Caesar goal kicking last week? If he is, let me know. If Coruscant's not goal kicking, that does worsen him a little bit. I'd probably take... If Coruscant's not goal kicking, despite what the stats say, playing at home, I think I'd probably play Reece Robson. Otherwise, if Coruscant's goal kicking, I would be probably playing Appy. Who would you reserve out of Eli Katoa, Mazu, Saab, or Tungo? Probably Eli Katoa, I think. Just Mazu versus the Sharks, Tungo versus Melbourne, Saab. I know the Warriors at home is a decent matchup, but he can either go 4 or like 104, which scares me when he can get very low scores. So I'd probably personally play Eli Katoa, I think, out of that lot. Yeah, Caesar kicked goals on the weekend. Yeah, okay. With Caesar kicking goals, I'd take Robson, I think, over Coruscant in terms of Civi starting there. So that obviously, look, I've changed it on screen, but just listen to my words in this particular case rather than what the screen says. Start Grant or Starling. Look, I think when it comes to Grant, so I've ranked him as a sit if you've got the likes of Connor Watson or Reece Robson. But I think I would be playing Grant, even if it's Penrith, versus compared to Tom Starling, because Cowboys themselves are actually pretty good at defending opposition dummy halves. If you look at the graphic there, they're 15th. Penrith is similar, and I trust the team more in Melbourne. I trust Harry Grant more, so I'd probably just play Grant over Starling. Would I play Lockie Galvin over Dylan Brown? Yes, I would. So I'm actually sitting Dill Bags in my team at the moment as well. So if you look at the 5/8s, I've got Galvin ranked above Dylan Brown. So in terms of matchups, the Rabbitohs are 10th worst at defending 5/8. With the Roosters, they're the best, 16th. So for me, I'd be, for sure, I'd be happy to play Galvin over Dylan Brown. Reserve Katoa, Hughes, Brown, Mazu. Is that just one? If it's just one, probably it's either Jerome Hughes or Katoa, I think, in my opinion. Hughes has still been pretty solid the last few weeks. He's not been getting those huge scores that he got when Munster wasn't in the team, but 60, 66, and 66. To be fair, there were easier matchups. Yeah, he got 25 versus the Roosters. I'd probably take Eli Katoa. I think he's just going to be a little bit safer for you. Grant or Appy with goal kicking. look, if Appy's goal kicking, I'd probably chance it and play Appy over Grant. Would I play Brown, Asako, or Tungo? It'd be one of Brown or Asako for me. It's probably going to be Dylan Brown, I think. I think even though Asako's goal kicking, he's not really getting much attacking ball, and it is a tough matchup against the Dogs. At least Dylan Brown, he's pretty much safe for 55 as well, but he can get those attacking stats as well. It is the Roosters, but I'd probably think that I'd prefer Brown. I think I haven't seen as much from Asako to suggest that he'll be getting those big scores. At least with Dylan Brown, he's more likely, I think, going to get you like 70 compared to, say, Asako is at the moment. Would I start Kolomatangi or Max Plath? Probably Plath. I think Plath has just got such good work rate. His base in the last few weeks has just been phenomenal. So even though he's got some attacking stats, like his base last week was 68, which is crazy. So yeah, I'd probably play Plath, to be honest, over Kolomatangi, especially if Kolomatangi's playing less minutes. And would I trade Kolomatangi to Angus? Yes, I definitely would. Other sit-v starts that people might be thinking about. So centre wing. So I've got Karaz and Iro as, and this is assuming if you've got like a Lomax, if you've got like a Dom Young, if you've got like, Dom Young or Lomax, you just play these guys. Don't even think about it. And if you're trying to fill in your remainders, Karaz and Iro for me would be plays. I'd almost even play Iro over Holmes just because of the Knights matchup, but I think ideally I'd be looking to get a reserve on Holmes if you can. And yeah, I'd be sitting the likes of, and this is in order, I'd sit DWZ, and then I'd sit McLean, I'd sit Asako, then I'd sit Marzu. So, for example, I would play Asako over Marzu just because of the goal kicking. Play Curran or Katoa. I answered that one before. I'm pretty sure I leaned slightly towards Curran. Dylan Brown or Eli Katoa. I'd probably go Eli Katoa. I just feel like I can see in my head him more likely to get some bigger attacking stats compared to maybe, say, Dillbags. Yes, Kolomatangi should play 80 minutes on the edge, but his work rate will go down. Yes, I mean, the attacking stats possibility might go up as well, but if you look at, say, rounds 1 till 11, he was pretty much playing on the edge for 80 minutes, and in those games, he didn't score any tries. So while the attacking stats potential could be there playing on the edge, he didn't show it earlier in the season, and he was kind of more averaging around 50. So Angus, I feel like, has got much better upside than Kolomatangi. Who would you captain out of Teddy or Turbo? Alrighty. Let me know if you've got more restart questions later, but I'll get onto captaincy and then we'll touch on my team and we might wrap up the stream in an even hour. Alright, so round 24 captains. So yeah, this is a tricky week because I think the best captains on paper are your fullbacks. So you've got probably Turbo or Teddy. To answer the question from Rion Miller, Teddy for me is probably still, I think, the one I'd be leaning towards. I mentioned it before, but Parramatta have conceded over the season the most PPM to opposition fullbacks, and also in the last 5 rounds. And I mentioned it before, they've done this in other seasons. Just to try to fact check, I'm going to look at, and by the way, I need to give a massive credit to NRL SuperCoach Stats because all of these stats I get from them. So yeah, if you look at 2023, Parramatta were 8th at conceding to opposition fullbacks. Dolphins were actually the most. Although, correct, I might have to refer to SuperCoach Guns' try map, but I feel like Parramatta are up there with conceding points to opposition fullbacks. Yeah, so 2023 was 8th, 2022 was 3rd, so they were pretty high in 2022. 2021, the stats might be a little bit random just because that was that crazy high scoring year. Yeah, Parramatta were 11th, and that season the Broncos were actually number 1. But anyway, either way, I think Parramatta is a really good matchup for fullbacks. I think off a bye, I think Teddy for me is probably the one I'd be leaning towards. I think we've seen him have a better season average than Turbo as well. So I think I'd be leaning slightly towards Teddy. And I'm probably very likely to captain Teddy. If you've got the ability to do a loop, you could do a VC Teddy and maybe go captain on a bit of a pod, maybe in head-to-head. I like Karaz or Lomax just because of their matchups this week. Otherwise, the safe option is probably still maybe a VC on Cleary, just because, even against Melbourne, it is a home game. So you know that he can easily get 70 to 80. And then you can leave your captaincy on Teddy or Turbo, but I do think Teddy is the one I'd be leaning towards out of the two. If you're again looking for a bit of a pod, say you're really trying to win this game and you have to go for something different, I think Teddy will outscore Sam Walker, but Sam Walker is probably also a very good pod captaincy shout this week. So other considerations, looking at some of the matchups that I like this week, the Dragons one is good, which is why I've got Lomax up here. I haven't got anyone out of the Tigers versus the Rabbitohs, just because I think the guys that you probably want, or that we own, probably don't have the huge ceilings. And I'm thinking of like a Lockie Galvin or maybe a Cody Walker. Don't really see them going like 130 plus. Garrick I like as a bit of a VC shout. I may be thinking of, instead of going Cleary, I might go VC Garrick instead. The only issue is that both the Roosters and Manly play on the Friday one after each other. So it's a little bit tougher to maybe do the loop in that sense. But yeah, for me, captaincy, it's a bit tricky between Turbo and Teddy, but I'm leaning towards Tedesco at the moment. Let me know if you've got any other captaincy questions. I like Sam Walker as a bit of a pod though. And guys, if you've liked the stream so far, please do give it a like. A little bit rusty, just getting back into it after a couple of weeks off, but yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed it so far. I'm trying to be a little bit quicker as well, but try to cover off all your questions just because I feel like less trades, so let's try to keep it a little bit more succinct and not go for like an hour, 20 minutes like I do in most weeks. Alrighty, I'll quickly maybe just show you guys my team and what I'm thinking of doing. Sorry, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So hopefully if you look, I'll spend a bit maybe more time on my team as well, sit v starts wise, because I think that might help a lot of you out there. So when it comes to my forwards, apart from Eli Katoa, it's pretty self-explanatory for me, I think, in terms of who I play. I've got Jake Simpkin, and also I've got 5 trades at the moment, 35k. So I think trades-wise looking pretty good. Don't have too much money in the bank though. Simpkin is one who I'm looking at. I'm definitely keeping in the back of my head that I will probably need to use a trade at hooker at some point in the season, whether that's around 26. If it is around 26 when the Storm do get a rest, unless I've got like a really strong vice captain loophole opportunity, I could potentially trade Simpkin to someone that week to get cover, or maybe trade Harry Grant to someone that week as well. Although remains to be seen. At the moment, Grant has been named. I play him. With front row, Joe Taps is a lock for me. He plays. And then Curran versus Fainu, I think I'm just going to take Curran. I think matchup wise, they're on paper, but I think similar on paper, but Curran's got a better floor. And I think, so he feels to me a safer option to play. In terms of second row, as I mentioned before, I think Fafita, Angus, and Olukwatu, Olukwatu, Angus, Fafita in order. I feel like I have to play those guys. And I think because of the good matchup against the Knights, happy to play and reserve Nikora. And at the moment, I'm actually sitting Eli Katoa. So at the moment, I've got VC Cleary. I'm not playing Dylan Brown at the moment. I'm playing Lockie Galvin because it's against the Rabbitohs. I think that's a pretty good matchup. And he's in really good form, pumping out good Supercoach scores. In terms of my center wing, assuming Dom Young plays, Val Holmes, Karaz, Dom Young, and Garrick, I think are all pretty straightforward plays. And then reserving Iro, I think really good matchup against the Knights. Sitting Marzu against the Sharks, I think the Sharks pretty good defensively. And sitting McLean versus Melbourne. And then Captain Teddy. And then it's a tougher matchup against the Sharks, but I feel like Callum Ponga is not someone I think I can be sitting out week to week. I've got the reserve on Jaden Campbell, but that's because the guy I'm going to be trading in will probably get a reserve as well. So that's how my team currently looks. In terms of trades, I think probably the one that I'm very, very confident I will be doing, excuse me, it will be Jaden Campbell to Sam Walker. Pretty keen on Sam Walker. I think really good run for the last 4 weeks. I didn't actually talk about it before, but in terms of his ownership, it's actually not that high as well. So Sam Walker's current ownership in the top 5% of coaches is only 18%, which, it's quite nice. So I'm liking Sam Walker as a bit of not a huge point of difference, but in the upper tiers, I think actually it's not that bad. Like he's 16% owned overall. Jaden Campbell's actually at 35%. So I feel like this week Campbell does have a good matchup, but I don't mind the I think the matchups are better for Sam Walker and also for the rest of the season as well. So I think Campbell to Sam Walker, I'm pretty locked in, I think, on doing. I think I'll be making that trade. And what I'll do in that time, or what I'll do at that point, I'll take the reserve off Dylan Brown, I'll reserve Sam Walker. So that could be how my team looks for this week. Just the one trade. So keeps 4 trades, which I like because I've got... I want to ideally try to keep 2 weeks for round 26 or round 27 when there could be mass restings. And then the other 2 can just be for kind of other random things that pop up. What I would have liked to have done, to be honest, or what I played around with was, could I maybe do like Marzu to Manu or Lomax? Unfortunately, I don't have the money to be able to do that. I'm only 6.5k off going Marzu to Manu, but I can't make that money work. So that trade's off the table. The only probably other trade I could maybe do this week is if Dom Young is ruled out, I might maybe make a switch of him to Lomax. And if I did that, what I might do if I can make the VC loop work is I could go VC Teddy Captain Lomax. That's potentially something I'm looking at doing, but that's only if Dom Young is ruled out. And I feel like I can only make that trade. I feel like I can make that trade because I've got, I'll still have 3 trades after doing this. So if I had to get Dom Young back in, I could. Plus, it still gives me like 1 or 2 trades spare. So this particular trade of Dom Young to Lomax is only if we get news that Dom Young is ruled out. It makes it much easier if he's ruled out for like next week as well, but we probably won't get that news. So I'm just going to have to do this on the basis that Dom Young's out for this week. And I think the only reason for wanting to potentially do this is just to maybe be a little bit more aggressive. I've got a couple of trades. The rank's kind of plateaued at 3,200. I'm happy to try to make a late push, and I feel like maybe getting in a Lomax, and that could be a way of doing it. But otherwise, that's kind of what I'm thinking at the moment. Tower D says Campbell wasn't far off a try or even 2. Chase kicks hard into in goal. Yeah, this is probably me lacking from being able to watch games over the last couple of weeks, but I still think even though he could have maybe scored better, and like Campbell's been good for me, like he's gotten me some good scores since I've traded him in, but I think I definitely prefer the Roosters run home. I like that Sam Walker is goal kicking. So for me, I'm still, I think, happy to go Walker over Campbell for the run home, because Campbell does have, after this week, he's got the Roosters and Penrith in 2 of his next 3, and I just think Sam Walker in comparison has got much better matchups. We'll address a couple more questions, and then I think we'll probably wrap it up at an even hour, but do give the stream a like if you have enjoyed it, guys. Play Fainu or Katoa. I think in that situation, probably Eli Katoa. I think he's much better, higher floor, and I think just a better Supercoach option as well, despite the matchup being tougher. Last trade, need to get rid of Haas with 19k in the bank. May or Cotter, can't afford Tarpany. That is a tough pickle to be in with your last trade. So condolences, Jason. Of your last... if you had to get one of May or Cotter... my initial thought was Ruben Cotter, just because of dual, which could be help with flexibility for you. And Terrell May's minutes just were being a little bit all over the shop in the last couple of rounds. With Cotter, you'd have to think that for the Cowboys, this is how away I've been. I don't even know what the ladder looks like. Let me have a quick look at the ladder. So the Cowboys are in 7th, and so they need to make sure they keep winning games, they're only 2 points out above number 8 spot, which is the Dolphins. So I feel like the Cowboys will need to keep winning games. They've got their last 2 games are also pretty tough against Melbourne, and I think it's the Bulldogs. And so those kind of games, you can see the middles having to be quite important. I feel like someone like Ruben Cotter is pretty safe for good minutes. So I think he's probably the one I'd lean towards, also with the dual status as well. Like, he had that game where he got injured in round 21, but outside of that, his scores have been pretty good. 65, 63, 103, 67, 51, 65. That's all since round 12. So there's some good scores in there for Cotter. I think the dual status is handy. Yeah, he's probably the one I'd just about lean towards. In terms of any other suggestions, they're probably you're probably looking at the best ones at that price, I reckon. Otherwise, if you can go via duels and get a second rower, there's probably maybe some other options there for you. Lola says, who to play as last two reserves from Cherry Evans, Jai Gray, Eli Katoa, and Iro. That's a bit tough. I think if you've got Cherry Evans at home against the Warriors, you probably have to play him. I'd probably lean towards sitting Katoa, and then it's either one of Jai Gray or Iro. I think you probably have to play Iro, in my opinion. I think his work rate is better than Jai Gray, and his attacking stats have gone up tremendously in the last few weeks. Like last 4 rounds of 94, 87, 84, 78. I think it's a good matchup at home versus the Knights. Yeah, I think Iro is probably where I'd be leaning towards as well. Alright guys, I think we're probably going to wrap up the stream there, just around about an hour. But hopefully you all got some value out of this. Please do give the stream a like as well if you did enjoy it. Probably won't be doing another stream on Thursday, just got commitments, but we'll hopefully be back on Sunday for the wrap up. But as ever, hit me up with any questions in the YouTube comments, on Twitter, Instagram and stuff. And we'll try to get back to you as best I can, but hopefully you all enjoyed it. Please do give the stream a like on the way out if you did. If you haven't yet, please consider subscribing, even though there's only 4 weeks left for the season. Otherwise, hope you all have a good evening, and catch you all in the next one. Cheers.